Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Mr. Ian Teaches English. If you are here, you are a really good studier of English and you want to know about the most complex ideas in English, because today's topic is the final verb tense, and honestly, it's not very common. So if you're looking for common verb tenses, if you are kind of in the beginning or the middle of your English journey, then go check out one of the videos around here about the basic verb tenses that I teach about in English. Those are much more important than this one. If you are an advanced student and you are looking forward to understanding all of the verb tenses, then this is the final video in our series of the 12 verb tenses in English. So let's go ahead and talk about that. There's going to be some rules and some practice and some examples, so prepare yourself for those. Here we go. All right, this is the future perfect continuous. This is the last verb tense that you should learn in English. It is the least common verb tense in my opinion, although if you want a complete English education, it's really important that you also know this verb tense. Now, to learn this verb tense, we're going to look back at the type of tense it is. This is a perfect tense, which means that it follows the rules of all the other perfect tenses, which means it uses have and the past participle. Also, it describes something happening before a time. So for this, we'll use the future of have and we'll use a future time. And whatever we're talking about happened before that time. It's also a continuous tense, which means that it uses be, base verb, ing, and it talks about things that are happening at the same time. So we have to put these two ideas together and show that this action, whatever your action, is happening in the future before and at the same time as an event. So usually we'll choose a time in the future and something was happening before and continued up until that time in the future. So present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous follow the same pattern. If you understand those, you should be able to understand these just from a future perspective. What does it look like? Good news, it never changes. Bad news, it's really big. So here you're looking at 4 different verbs to describe this. So have a look here at this chart. Pause it if you need to. The only note that I'll make is with the contractions, which I always use and I always tell you to use, you're going to contract will and have when you pronounce it. Not when you write it, but when you pronounce it, you're going to contract the will and the have. So it'll sound like olive, olive, yolive, hillive. And if you want more help with that pronunciation, I do have a future tense video for pronunciation that goes through all of the pronunciations. So that might be worth your time. Future perfect continuous, how do we use it? This is used to show an event that will begin in the future and continue to another point in the future. So you'll see in our little picture here, we have now and then the future. We always give a time in the future, either with context or we just say a time. And our event in the future perfect continuous, that event continues and is happening at the same time as that event in the future. So something that takes time, something that is in progress, but is also at that same time in the future. It usually includes how long or the duration, because, again, this is a continuous tense, and we talked about this in all the continuous tense videos. There's an idea that things take time. This is no different. Things take time, so we usually talk about how long it took. An example here, I'll have been watching TV for 5 hours before you come home. So we have our time in the future, before you come home, maybe 5 o'clock at night or some other time. But before you come home, I'll have been watching TV for 5 hours. So the idea is when you come home, I started watching TV 5 hours ago and continued to watch it until you arrived home. So both of those things are true. Now, a very, very, very important idea with any future tense are these idea of time clauses. On the last slide, you probably noticed that I didn't use the future tense both times. I used the future perfect continuous tense and I used the present tense. That's because in English, we do not use future tenses in time clauses. So if your clause tells us when something happened, it cannot be in the future tense. You can use the past tense or the present tense, but you can't use the future tense. So you'll see in all of these example sentences where we have a time clause, the time clause will be in the present tense. So look at the good and the bad there. The bad sentence is, she'll have been working for 8 hours when you'll arrive. And I know, you say, Mr. Ian, that event is also in the future. Yes, that's true. But we just don't do it. Look at the good sentence. She'll have been working for 8 hours when you arrive. That's good English. If you don't believe me, pause the video, call your American friend, and see what they say. They'll tell you the same thing. Is it strange? Absolutely. But when is English not strange? All right, let's look at some more examples so you can see this idea in practice. All right, example number 1. He'll have been working all day before dinner. So at dinner, there was a continuous idea of work that was happening all day before dinner. Now this includes the time up to and including before dinner. So when he arrives, he will stop working, but that event was very close to him stopping working. Number 2, before the end of the program, we'll have been sitting here for 3 hours. So at the time the program ends, that continuous idea of sitting there for 3 hours. Number 3, when you call, I'll have been waiting for a while. So here we don't know how long, we just know a while, a long time. But when you call, that practice of waiting will be finished. Number 4, the dog will have already been sleeping for hours by this afternoon. Now, this verb tense is sometimes a little complex because does the continuous action continue after this event? We're not sure. Does the dog continue to sleep after this afternoon? Maybe. Do you continue to wait after the call? Maybe, but we don't know the future. So this one is a little bit, a little more flexible on is it happening at the same time or does it end before that time? Because we don't know the future. So you've probably already thought about that. Number 5, by the end of this video, you'll have been studying English for a long time. And that's true. I try to keep my videos short, but hey, sometimes it takes time. Now you'll notice in all of these that I used a time clause. It's in the present tense. All right, so for example number 3, when you call, present tense, not future, even though it's in the future. So it's true what I said about the time clause thing. All right, let's practice. Pause the video here if you need to. Take a moment and choose the correct verb tense for what is in the blank. So go ahead, take a moment, and I'll be with you in just a minute. All right, you ready to talk about this? Here we go. Number 1, the chickens all have been laying eggs for years by the time they die. So, good news. You have eggs? Sorry, you have chickens? They give you eggs. Number 2, by the wedding day, the bride will have been planning for months. All right, so this planning up until and including that day, right? If you've been to a wedding, you understand that there's still some planning that happens on that day. Number 3, when I become fluent, I'll have been studying English for many years. Very true. English is not easy, but you can do it. Stick with it. But notice here, when I become, present tense because it is in a time clause. And the last one, she'll have been waiting for hours before my delayed flight arrives. So hopefully you put that arrives in the present tense because it is part of a time clause. Now, why is this important? I don't know. It is important because it is a verb tense and people do use it, but it's really not very common. I would probably only tell my students to learn this if they were pretty good and pretty strong in the other verb tenses that are much, much more common. So, do you need it for a complete English education? Yes, you do, because English speakers will use it, especially those contractions can be a little bit difficult to hear. But it is not something that you're probably going to use. I imagine you can probably speak English pretty well without using this. So, did you need this video? I don't know. I hope so. I hope you watched it. I hope you liked it. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. As always, let me know in the comments if you have any questions, if there was a point that was not clear, or some other idea that you want to talk about. Even if you want to try a sentence down below, and I'll check it for you to tell you if it's good or if you need to change something. I'm happy to help. I do respond to all of my comments. And if you do like these videos, subscribe. The like button really helps me grow the channel. And the notification bell, if you do that, it will let you know when I do my live streams, because sometimes I just do surprise live streams. And with those, you can ask me any questions you want about English, and I'll try to answer you. I'll try to do a good job. Anyway, thank you so much for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, we'll see you.